Good evening. Good afternoon. Yeah, glad to be here. How many people took detours to get here or have taken detours in their life? Yeah, detours. Detours, we've all had them. And most of us see detours as negative things. It's taken us too much time, or even how many people have taken a detour and ended up in the wrong neighborhood, right? But what I did was I was able to take those detours and turning into something positive and strengths in my life. Most people, as you just mentioned, as you just heard, people know me as a high altitude mountaineer and the leader of the first of Full Circle expeditions, the first all-black team to summit Mount Everest. But I need to rewind the clock a little bit because there's a lot of things that went on to actually get me to that point where I'm actually standing here talking with you all today and sharing this story. You see, the first 8 years of my life were filled with church. Church was first, and family and community. I went to an all-black school, lived in an all-black neighborhood. And I say the first 8 years of my life because after that, things changed a bit. My father was actually allowed to buy a house in the suburbs. This was in 1972. And all of a sudden, for the next couple years, I was one black student in my class for the next couple years. And I say student, but I didn't really feel like a student. So think about this. Imagine what it's like to be in class when you raise your hand and the teacher never calls on you to answer a question. Or what it may be like to walk with rocks and golf balls in your pockets because people would drive by and the names that they would call out. Well, at 9 years old, I didn't know what to do with that, so two things. If I got called out of my name too many times, two things would fly, and it was either rocks outside of school or it was fist in school. But at some point in my life, I realized that I didn't like that stress. And so instead of walking on the roads, I just started to take shortcuts. And I walked on the trails and in the path. And I started to notice different things, like flowers, animals, just peace and tranquility in my body. So with all of those things, actually walking to school was more interesting than school itself. But taking that detour was really the foundation of my connection to nature. But there was two other things that happened about that same time. The first one is my uncle. My uncle Hersey was about my age now back then when I was 8. I won't give you my age, but he took me fishing. He came to visit and he took the time to take me fishing. And that was something that stuck with me. Actually, it still sticks with me to this day. And it was kind of a lifesaver. And I'll share that with you later as well. But I also had sports. And sports to me, for a lot of people, sports is something different. But for me, sports was an equalizer. It was a bridge that built communities. It's like, going, again, I mentioned it was in 1972. So this was in desegregation was happening in California. So half the kids that I went to school with didn't live in my neighborhood. They lived across town. But what that did was we played against them. But we all went to school together. So we were able to talk about last week's game or to talk about next week's game. So it kind of built some commonalities for us. So I played baseball, football most of my life, all the way through college. But at some point in my life, things changed. And this is where detour number 2 comes in. Shattered dreams, injury, loss of community, all of those things happened at one moment. Because I played football most of my life from age 8 through high school and through college. But this was the last time that I actually wore a football uniform because the next game I actually had an injury and I fractured a vertebrae in my neck. I was paralyzed for about 2 minutes or so. And a lot of people know about the camaraderie you have with team sports, but what they don't know is how fast that goes away. when you're no longer on campus, you don't play in the games, you don't go to the parties. All of that goes away quick and it hurts. But after about 5 years or so, I had some time to think, and I said, whatever I want to do in life, I'm going to do it because life is short. And so I decided that I wanted to go into the outdoor industry. And in 1992, I started my career in the outdoor industry. But what was really funny was that making that jump, it was like jumping back 20 years. Because the outdoor industry looked just like it did when I moved from one side of the town to the other. And I was, again, one of the only black kids, one of the black people working in the industry. For 6 years, I was the first and the only person who worked for an organization who was dark-skinned like me. But the trust was built much faster because I was in the driver's seat, as you can see. Yeah. So the truth is that, I've always had this connection to outdoors, and it's run really deep. It's just that society says different and tells us different things. And so what I learned was not to just think outside the box, but to live outside the box. So I feel like everyone should follow their passions and their dreams and not just buy into what someone else's narrative is to what you should do, what you shouldn't do, because that's what the dominant culture does. It tells us what we should do, what we can't do, what we're not able to do. So think about it like this. If I decided not to become a mountaineer and to listen to what society says just simply because black people don't do that, I really would have missed out on a whole life, my whole adult career. But instead, I did what I wanted to do, and I became that outdoor professional, and I built my own truth, even when the social norms dictated the exact opposite of what I should be doing and what we see. So when you practice inclusivity and being inclusive of other people and other marginalized communities, that's when we make change. And it's the people that make change, not institutions. So when we put community first at the center of anything, it really creates a bridge to this divided societies. Yep, the outdoors is recreation. It's fun, but it's also a medium for connection and reflection and self-growth for everybody. Mother Nature knows no different. When it rains, we all get wet. When the sun comes out, we all get warm from the sun. And we all accomplish things in life, and when we reflect on those things, it gives us confidence. And when we do those things together, it gives us confidence that we can accomplish things together. So I've always been confident in the outdoors, even when other people doubted either my existence or even my abilities. But recognizing that the barriers that I had were always my own. I can do anything I want. Doesn't mean that there are things that come with that, but the barriers, I have no barriers in that sense. It's those detours in life that gave me the confidence that enabled me to do those things. To climb the highest mountain in North America, Denali, twice actually. Or to lead the first all-black expedition on Kilimanjaro as well. Actually, I was on Kilimanjaro twice. But also to lead 2 Everest expeditions, successful expeditions where everybody came home. But most of all, just become a leader in my own community and a mentor to other people who either look like me or don't look like me, and a change maker on a global scale. Someone mentioned about, there's over 8 million people in the world. Through this expedition, we talk about impressions. We had 5.6 billion impressions from this expedition alone, just to tell you how many people that actually resonated with. So I asked people to look at their own detours in life. Like, what detours have you had? What have you learned? How did you grow? How did you expand your views and how you treat other people, or how you even treat yourself? Because if we don't see those opportunities for growth, those detours, then we're just keeping ourselves from growing and learning and succeeding in life. We stop ourselves from just enjoying life, but most of all, it stops us from having a voice and actually saying what we should be doing and not listening to other people and kind of regurgitating what other folks think. I mentioned my Uncle Hersey. Years ago, again, my Uncle Hersey was born in 1911 and lived until 2010, 6 months shy of his 100th birthday. But the one thing that I remember, he liked poems and sayings and so on. And the one that really resonates with me is that he said, if you want to put the world right, you start with yourself. Thank you.